The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Despite its small size, Georgia has a vibrant startup ecosystem in which all sides, including the government, founders and investors, are actively involved. Yet Georgia is an emerging market, so for local startups, scaling and acceleration is not only important but crucial. The Checkpoints had an opportunity to talk to one of the investors behind Y Combinator, world's leading startup accelerator.
Among the world's prominent startup accelerators, Y Combinator is one of the best. A simple glimpse into YC's portfolio is enough to understand the intellectual capabilities, prophetic and entrepreneurial abilities of the people in charge. Throughout its existence, Y Combinator has invested in Airbnb, Dropbox, DoorDash, Coinbase, OpenSea, Reddit, and Stripe, among many others. Being backed by Y Combinator is a dream come true for Georgian startups, for which scaling and acceleration are crucial. The road to Silicon Valley is already paved. In 2021, the fintech company Payzy became the first Georgian startup backed up by YC. In 2022, high-quality API docs generator Theneo joined too. Many more Georgian startups will join Y Combinator in the future. There's no doubt about it. Today, I'll talk to Y Combinator's investor, Arnav Sahu. Arnav, greetings. Thank you for answering our questions.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Arnav, you are one of the investors in one of the best startup accelerators in the world. What is your journey? How did you end up at YC?
So my personal journey, I grew up in India, was fortunate to come to the US because I came through a scholarship program for university. So came to university, studied at Cornell University in upstate New York. Um, at the time I was very interested at the intersection of tech and finance. So started my career at a firm called the Blackstone Group in New York, in the private equity side. Learned a lot about the fundamentals of analyzing businesses, looking at companies, working with CEOs and founders. And was there for 2 years. Realized that, I wanted a bit of a change and work at a tech company. So then joined this startup called App Dynamics, which got acquired by Cisco. Worked there in the corporate development team. Did a lot of things there, mainly around M&A, investing, product, strategic partnerships, but really, dug my teeth deep into enterprise software, and that's where I built a lot of my expertise in enterprise software. And then I was there for about 3 years, and I then joined a venture capital firm called Spark Capital in the Bay Area, mainly leading our investments in enterprise software and enterprise infrastructure software, which were, tools that in areas like cybersecurity, AI, developer tools, cloud infrastructure. So, the layer beneath your enterprise software applications like Zoom that went on that power a lot of these applications. And then I joined YC about a year back, mainly focused again on enterprise software and enterprise infrastructure. And it's been a ton of fun to be at YC and work with the founders here. And again, at YC, mostly focus on my time on enterprise software, but YC is a small place, so we work with a lot of our founders and ensure that they're successful in building big.
Arnav, Georgia is an emerging country. And for Georgian startups to grow, scaling and acceleration is of utmost importance. As an investor with experience of investing in emerging markets, what are the main trends you could highlight?
Look, I think one of the biggest trends you see in emerging markets that I see all across, and I grew up in India, is certainly the big waves in fintech, and there are a lot of commonalities in fintech companies. If you take Stripe for an example, which is a US-based company, they enable any online business to easily accept payments. So if you're an online business and you want a customer to pay via a credit card, you need the infrastructure and the tools to accept that credit card. So Stripe essentially allows anyone to accept online payments via credit cards. Now, if you think about that analogy, everywhere in the world, every emerging market is moving from offline to online payments. I think different countries are at different points in their journey, but everyone is going through that journey. And in so many ways, you've seen Stripe for every single country that's emerged. There are other parallels that you see in other fintech sectors where you see a lot of companies. So I'd say, one of the biggest waves that I see in emerging markets is the fintech revolution. And in many ways, if you think about the fintech revolution, it's actually leapfrog what the US has done. If you think about what happened in the US, you have, the credit card industry is pretty big, and a lot of the online payments happen via credit cards. For example, in India completely leapfrogged the credit card habit and moved directly to online payments, where effectively the government has built the entire payment rails. So in my view, I think it's an exciting time to be a founder in emerging markets because there are certain businesses and models that have already played out. And certainly in the fintech sector, I see a lot of opportunities. The second area I see a ton of opportunities, which I think has been a big shift, is I think remote work has completely changed the game forever. Today you don't have to be sitting in the US or Europe to be building a big company. You can be building a big company wherever you want, either selling into the local market there or selling to the global market, like the US. So I say two big shifts that I see. I think certainly on the fintech side, see a ton of great companies emerge in countries that are following similar playbooks. And two, just seeing a lot of companies being founded in local regions that are either serving the global market or the local market. And in many ways, I think founders in emerging countries are at now probably an advantage because if you're a startup that's successful in an emerging country, you effectively have access to the best talent in that country. And today, talent doesn't have to be where, in the US or Europe, where you have to be close to the office. Talent now is everywhere. So in many ways, I think it's a great time to be an emerging market founder. You can learn a lot from people who've done it before, past mistakes, past models. And because of remote work, you can build it from it.
Arnav, what are the best practices and tactics that the international founders backed up by Y Combinator are using?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'd say really two steps to company building, right? First is at the early stages, getting to product market fit as fast and cheaply as possible. And there it's about the founder identifying, a clear pain point, talking to users, being very user centric. I think a lot of people forget this while building startups. They have an idea in their head or they've spoken to some of their friends, but often don't talk enough to users. They have this perfect vision of what the product should be, but often users might not care about. So I think the best practice and the best companies in YC, even at the very late stages, are very user centric, and that's very important, especially at the early stages when you are building an initial product to get out in front of users. So I think best practices for early stage companies, whether that's based in the US or emerging markets, I think is to be really focused on the user, moving quickly and launching very quickly. And I think this is even more important in many ways for emerging market founders, where you have a lot of different problems, a lot of white spaces that could be solved, but really solving for the pain points that really matter to users. So that's the first stage, is getting to product market fit and talking to users. And I think that those are best practices there. Once you have product market fit and the product built out, as a founder, it becomes about company building and scaling the team. And I think there's, the best practices I see are really around two things. One is, having clarity of thought and communicating your vision to your employees, which is the ability to craft a story, articulate why you're building what you're building in the direction that you're going, because that's very important for internal alignment as you build the company. And two, I think the biggest differentiator for, the difference between good companies and bad companies is the ability to hire world-class talent. And I think as a founder, at some point in your journey, you have to be an amazing recruiter. You have to convince other great people to come leave their jobs and join you in your mission to build whatever you're building. So I think my advice to people generally at the early stages is launch fast, talk to users. Once you do have product market fit, learn how to recruit really well and have the ability to really communicate succinctly and effectively, because that's important to hire and also communicate to your internal employees to scale.
Arnav, thank you for answering our questions and being with us. It's been a pleasure.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.